"I only stayed with you for security while loving him," she admitted cruelly. I packed my things in silence. Looking back now, I realized that 3 years of my life had been built on a foundation of lies I was too trusting to see. I met Natalie at a wine tasting event in downtown Nashville 3 years ago, one of those trendy Friday night gatherings where young professionals pretended to know the difference between a Bordeaux and a Burgundy. I was 31, a software architect pulling in $165,000 annually, comfortable in my career and looking for someone genuine to share my life with. She was 24, stunningly beautiful with this effortless bohemian style that turned heads wherever she went. Natalie had just graduated with a degree in textile arts and was working part-time at an upscale boutique in the Gulch, but her real passion was fashion design. She talked about launching her own clothing line with such infectious enthusiasm that I found myself completely captivated by her ambition and creativity. Within 2 months of dating, she was spending most nights at my downtown loft, and when she mentioned her roommate situation had become toxic, with some drama involving unpaid bills and boyfriend conflicts, I offered to let her move in temporarily. I figured it would give us a chance to really see if we had long-term potential while helping her get back on her feet. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly temporary would become permanent, or how my supportive gesture would transform into something entirely different. Within a week of officially moving in, Natalie quit her boutique job to focus full-time on developing her fashion portfolio and seeking investors for her design business. "I can't create my best work while wasting energy on retail," she explained, and it made sense to me at the time. I was making good money, had minimal expenses, and genuinely believed I was investing in our shared future by supporting her creative dreams. She set up a design workspace in my spare bedroom, filled it with fabric samples and sketching materials, and threw herself into her craft with what seemed like genuine dedication and artistic vision. Over the next 3 years, I watched my bank account drain as Natalie's fashion dreams consumed every dollar I earned, totaling roughly $350,000 in what I convinced myself was an investment in our future together. I covered our $2,800 monthly rent for the downtown loft, her Mercedes lease at $720 per month because she claimed a luxury car was essential for meeting potential investors, and premium fabric purchases that ranged from $1,200 to $2,000 monthly depending on her latest inspiration. Then there were the fashion shows and networking events costing $500 to $800 monthly, professional photo shoots for her designs, and countless workshops and seminars she insisted were crucial for her development as a designer. In 3 years, Natalie sold exactly 2 custom pieces totaling $1,400 while constantly attending fashion weeks in New York and Atlanta, exclusive design workshops, and industry parties that somehow always required new outfits and expensive accessories. She had mastered the art of emotional manipulation, breaking into tears whenever I questioned an expense and accusing me of not believing in her vision or crushing her creative spirit. "Look at Stella McCartney, look at Marc Jacobs," she would say through crocodile tears. "They all struggled before making it big. Success takes time and investment, Tyler. I thought you understood that." Her fashion school friends became regular fixtures at my loft, treating me like hired help while drinking my expensive wine and openly mocking my corporate tech bro lifestyle. "Tyler's so lucky to have someone creative like you, Nat," they would coo while sprawling across my furniture. "Most guys don't appreciate artistic souls." I found myself working longer hours just to avoid coming home to their condescending attitudes and Natalie's increasingly expensive demands. She would present me with invoices for fabric sourcing trips, tearfully explain why she needed $3,000 for a particular workshop with some renowned designer, or announce that she had committed us to attending another fashion event that would cost thousands. "This is our future, babe," she would say, wrapping her arms around me. "Once my line takes off, I'll pay you back everything with interest." The worst part was how she made me feel guilty for having concerns about money, as if my practical questions about budgets and timelines made me some kind of dream-crushing monster who didn't understand the artistic process. Everything changed when Natalie met Cameron 15 months ago at an industry showcase I had paid $800 for her to attend. He was a 35-year-old fashion photographer who owned studios in Nashville and Miami, The kind of guy who wore expensive minimalist clothing and spoke in artistic abstractions that made people feel unsophisticated if they didn't immediately understand his vision. Within weeks of meeting him, Natalie began spending entire days at his creative space for what she called portfolio development, leaving our loft at 7 in the morning and returning well past midnight with elaborate stories about artistic collaboration and building crucial industry connections. Her phone became completely off-limits, something that had never been an issue before, and she would step outside to take calls or disappear into the bathroom with her device for 20-minute sessions. Cameron says I need to think bigger, more conceptually, she would explain when I asked about her increasingly late nights. He's helping me understand the business side of fashion, how to position myself in the market. She began redecorating my loft to match what she called Cameron's sophisticated minimalist aesthetic, demanding I replace my comfortable furniture with stark, uncomfortable pieces that looked impressive but felt like sitting in a modern art museum. The intimacy between us completely disappeared as she claimed constant, artistic exhaustion from her intensive creative sessions, but she had plenty of energy to gush about Cameron's incredible understanding of the fashion world and his connections with major industry players. She started requesting higher budgets for Cameron-recommended equipment, travel to fashion events he suggested, and exclusive workshop fees for programs he endorsed. Cameron thinks I should attend the Miami Fashion Week, she announced one evening. He says it's crucial for my development, and he can introduce me to some major buyers down there. When I hesitated at the $4,500 cost, she looked at me with pure disgust. Tyler, Cameron invests in artists he believes in. He understands what it takes to succeed in this industry. Sometimes I feel like you just don't get the creative world at all. I began to notice how she compared everything I did unfavorably to Cameron's approach, from my practical mindset to my preference for quiet evenings at home instead of constant networking events and gallery openings. The truth came crashing down on a Thursday afternoon when I decided to surprise Natalie with lunch from her favorite farm-to-table restaurant, leaving my client meeting early because I'd been feeling disconnected from her lately and wanted to make an effort to reconnect. I used my key to enter the loft quietly, planning to set up the food as a romantic surprise, but instead I found them in my bedroom, Natalie and Cameron, completely oblivious to my presence until I dropped the bag of food. Instead of shame or embarrassment, Natalie's face showed pure irritation at my unexpected arrival, like I had interrupted something important rather than discovered a betrayal that shattered 3 years of my life. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" she snapped, not even bothering to cover herself properly. "I told you I'd be working late with Cameron today." Cameron scrambled to grab his clothes with obvious panic, but Natalie remained eerily calm as she reached for her robe, her cold composure more devastating than any tears or apologies could have been. "Actually, this is probably for the best," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed like she was conducting a business meeting. "We need to talk anyway." What followed was the most brutal 15 minutes of my life as she systematically destroyed every assumption I'd had about our relationship with surgical precision. "I've been with Cameron for 15 months, Tyler. Physically, emotionally, in every way that matters," she said, her voice flat and matter-of-fact. "I only stayed with you for the financial security while I figured out what I really wanted, and what I want is him." She explained how Cameron understood her artistic soul in ways I never could, how my corporate mindset and safe, predictable lifestyle had been slowly suffocating her creativity, and how she'd been planning to leave me once her fashion career took off with Cameron's help. "You're safe but soulless, Tyler. You provide stability, but Cameron provides passion and inspiration. There's no comparison." When I quietly told her to pack her things and leave my loft, she looked genuinely shocked, as if she'd expected me to beg her to stay or fight for our relationship. "You can't just kick me out," she protested. "I've lived here for 3 years. This is my home too." But I'd put the loft in my name alone, and she had no legal claim to anything except the clothes and design equipment I'd bought her. Her calm facade finally cracked when she realized she had no leverage, no safety net, and no legal recourse, transforming into desperate manipulation tactics about how much she'd sacrificed for our relationship and how I owed her continued support for her dreams. I had the locks changed within 2 hours of Natalie's departure and blocked her on every platform, then threw myself into rebuilding my life with the same methodical approach I used for complex software projects. The first step was therapy with Dr. Rebecca Walsh, who specialized in financial abuse and helped me understand how systematically I'd been manipulated and exploited over 3 years. What you experienced wasn't just infidelity, she explained during our second session. It was a comprehensive pattern of financial and emotional abuse disguised as a romantic partnership. I joined a CrossFit gym downtown and discovered that physical exhaustion was the perfect antidote to emotional pain, losing 35 pounds over 4 months while gaining confidence I didn't realize I'd lost. My work performance improved dramatically without the constant stress of Natalie's financial demands, and I received a promotion to senior architect with a salary bump to $195,000 annually. But the most satisfying part of my recovery was conducting some strategic research into Cameron's business using my tech industry connections and analytical skills. A few discreet inquiries revealed that his photography studios in Nashville and Miami were heavily leveraged with substantial debts to equipment suppliers, unpaid taxes in both Tennessee and Florida, and several pending lawsuits from clients who'd paid deposits for work never delivered. I compiled this information into a comprehensive report and strategically shared it with Cameron's business partners, creditors, and the state tax authorities in both jurisdictions. Within 2 months, both studios were seized for asset recovery, his equipment was repossessed, and Cameron's photography business collapsed entirely. Through mutual contacts in Nashville's creative community, I learned that Natalie had moved into Cameron's cramped downtown apartment after his wife discovered the affair and filed for divorce, taking half of his remaining assets and their house in Belmead. The irony was delicious. She'd left my comfortable loft for what she thought would be an upgrade, only to end up in a studio apartment with a man whose career I'd systematically destroyed using nothing but publicly available information and strategic communication. 5 months after I'd thrown Natalie out of my life, she began her desperate campaign to crawl back, starting with calls from blocked numbers that I ignored, then escalating to showing up at my loft building's lobby where the security desk called to ask if I wanted to see her. I came downstairs to find her looking absolutely wrecked, thin, hollow-eyed, wearing cheap clothes that hung poorly on her diminished frame, a far cry from the confident woman who'd once demanded designer everything. "Tyler, please, I just need 5 minutes to explain," she begged, her voice cracking with genuine desperation. "I'm pregnant, and Cameron has completely abandoned me." She poured out the whole pathetic story through tears that seemed real this time, how Cameron had blocked her on everything the moment she told him about the pregnancy, claiming she'd ruined his marriage and destroyed his career when the news leaked to his ex-wife's divorce attorney. Her parents had cut off all financial support after I'd sent them detailed records of exactly how she'd exploited me for 3 years, and her fashion industry connections had evaporated due to association with Cameron's scandal and business collapse. "I need $15,000 for prenatal care and basic living expenses," she pleaded, promising to pay me back somehow once she got back on her feet, but I could see the desperation in her eyes that told me she knew those were empty words. "I made terrible mistakes, Tyler. I threw away the best thing in my life for someone who turned out to be a complete fraud." Her breakdown was complete and genuine, but I felt nothing except mild pity for someone who'd chosen her path so deliberately. "I'm sorry you're struggling, Natalie, but that's not my responsibility anymore," I told her calmly. "You made your choice when you decided I was just a financial safety net." The situation became even more absurd 2 weeks later when Cameron himself called from his brother's phone, trying to manipulate me into helping with child support since his photography career was destroyed and he was working construction jobs to pay basic bills. "Look man, I know things got complicated between us," he said with fake camaraderie, "but this baby didn't ask to be born into this situation. You're the only one with the resources to help, and Natalie says you're a decent guy underneath it all." I hung up on him immediately and changed my number that same day, cutting off their final avenue of contact. 2 years later, I'm living in a beautiful house in Belmead that I bought with cash, thanks to the money I saved by eliminating my financial parasite, and I'm in a committed relationship with Jessica, an intelligent marketing director who earns her own substantial income and treats me as an equal partner rather than a personal ATM. We split expenses fairly, plan our future together as a team, And she actually listens when I talk about my work instead of seeing me as a resource to be exploited. Through Nashville's interconnected social circles, I occasionally hear updates about Natalie and Cameron's continuing downward spiral that I observe with detached interest rather than satisfaction. Natalie works at a discount clothing store while living in a shared apartment with her toddler, posting bitter social media rants about toxic men and broken dreams that her few remaining followers largely ignore. Cameron pays minimal court-ordered child support while living with his parents and working manual labor jobs, his expensive camera equipment long since repossessed, and his reputation in Nashville's creative community permanently destroyed. The best revenge, I've learned, isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. It's simply succeeding while allowing people to face the natural consequences of their selfish choices, watching from a distance as they destroy themselves with the same character flaws that led them to betray you in the first place.